Shri Shyam Parande ji, Amarjit Lochan ji, Dr. Nitin Agarwal ji, our dear speaker today, very respectfully, we welcome you here, Ritva Kylli and Arindam ji, Divakar ji, and all those who have joined. It's a great pleasure to meet you all here. And as I was just discussing with Professor Ritva, that this is a very, very important topic, not only important, but also very valuable to revive a lost page of history when the local traditions, the native traditions, they were exterminated and destroyed, and several European countries and people lost their identities, their cultural identities, because they were crushed by church. And when I keep discussing with some of my known friends in Europe, they tell me that the people who are actively supporting this reviving of native cultures, they are so scared also, because sometimes they are even killed. So we have to look into, because not many people know that how cultures, ethnic traditions, civilizations, even food, even herbs, even plants, everything was destroyed. So what were the European countries, what were the people doing? They had their own quest of virtue. They were following the path of truth. They used to revere the earth, the nature. So there was a lifelong affirmation. So with the whole universe. So unfortunately, this diversity has been killed. And that is why there are so many problems in the world, especially today. As I must, first of all, I would like, with great pleasure, I would like to introduce our dear speaker today. Respectfully, Professor Ritva Kylli is a university lecturer of Arctic and Northern History and Associate Professor of Finnish and North European History at the University of Oulu in Finland. So Finland is such a cold country with Norway and other countries to their side. Her thesis, she completed her thesis in 2005. The thesis dealt with the cultural encounters and confrontation between the church and the Sami people during the 18th and the 19th centuries. So people who are teaching us today the values for life, how they crushed. She has most recently concentrated on food, health, and environmental history of the Arctic. So all countries, all regions, they have their own kind of food as they require. It is given by nature. So what is the value of that? So most important topic. So as I know that a few points of her topic she is going to talk about is Lapland has been a popular destination for explorers, traders, and travelers. In addition to people, goods also traveled long distances to reach the north. So how these routes were vibrant when there was this kind of cultural exchange and trade was going on. Imported products were used side by side with local cures and remedies among the Sami people, the native people of Finland. The medical culture of Lapland had a relatively strong cross-cultural dimension early. The traditional medicinal skills and knowledge of the Sami also featured elements from traditional Indian and Chinese medicine. So it's good to know that there is some element of Indian Ayurveda also. Maybe we can explore later. We can go for deeper studies into it. So with these words, I welcome you all, the speaker and all other my dear friends and members of ICCS and all those who have joined us, because I can see many others also in this webinar. So thank you very much, Professor Ritva, to accept our invitation to enlighten us about the food culture that has a medicinal quality, because all foods have medicinal quality that keeps the body healthy. So We are ruining the world by eating wrong things in wrong combinations at wrong time, at wrong place. So, welcome. Now the floor is yours. So maybe all those who have some questions, please put your questions into the chat box, and finally we will take up all those questions.
Dr. Nitin Agarwal ji will also be speaking.
Yeah,
from
okay.
Indian
Yes, Dr. Nitin Agarwal ji, you are going to chair. I request you to chair this webinar.
Yeah, right.
These days we are doing too many things, right. But it's sometimes we forget a few things when it is not physically, we can't see you. So sorry, and please accept the invitation to chair this webinar, Dr. Nitin Agarwal. And now the floor is yours.
And thank you for having me here. It's so great to see you all here. I guess you can see my slides now. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Traditional Arctic Healing, Cross-Cultural Medical Encounters. And as you heard already, my name is Ritva Kylli, and I work as a university lecturer of Arctic and Northern History in the University of Oulu in Finland. As I work as a university lecturer of Arctic and Northern History, I often use this kind of map with the North Pole view of the globe. You can see Finland here, and Sami people have lived in the northernmost parts of Europe, and you can see on this map other Arctic indigenous groups as well. The Sami people are an indigenous people inhabiting the territory of Sapmi, which today covers the northern parts of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Kola Peninsula in Russia. The Sami are the only indigenous people in the area of European Union. They inhabit the territory of Sapmi, as I already mentioned, and there are several Sami languages, and 3 of them are spoken in Finland. The number of Sami is estimated at 80,000, and about 8,000 of them are living in Finnish territory or in Finland. So this presentation focuses on the Arctic indigenous peoples and their knowledge of the medication. I'm especially interested in the plant-based medication and the traditional healing methods of some communities who lived in the 18th and 19th centuries. My examples are mostly from the northern regions of the Sami area in Finland, especially Utsjoki, which is the northernmost municipality of Finnish Lapland and which still has a lot of Sami inhabitants. I've been researching Arctic indigenous peoples for over 20 years now. In recent years, I've been interested in thinking about what kind of influences the indigenous peoples adopted from each other during the past centuries. Tobacco was among the most popular imported overseas goods, which began to be commonly used in Europe. It was originally used by Native Americans. It was used both in spiritual and religious ceremonies, but also as a medical treatment. At some point, smoking tobacco became an important habit also for the Sami people. Here you can see a Sami man smoking a pipe. So I'm interested in the medical history as well as the global spread of medical knowledge and the healing methods. It's of course a well-known fact that peoples in the Indian subcontinent have known a lot about these topics. In the early modern world, for example, India was famous for its knowledge of medicine, such as Ayurveda, In a similar way, it's interesting to know how medical skills and knowledge spread from among the peoples of India to the new areas. On this slide, I have a picture of a famous book called The Human Web. It has been written by J.R. McNeill and William McNeill, and it was published in 2003. It tells about the historical webs of communication and interaction, how all people in the world have been linked with each others. People have exchanged ideas and goods, at least since the development of human speech. According to these writers, people communicate and transfer useful technologies, goods, crops, ideas, and much else. And the exchange and spread of information, items, and human responses to them is what shapes history. So this has been my starting point for this presentation. People exchange diseases, but they also trade and exchange remedies. If we think about Asia and Europe, before maritime trade developed, the knowledge and commodities moved both to east and west via the Silk Road. Medical knowledge spread from India across the world, and it also spread to China, where it mixed with the local healing arts. I published an article about these themes 3 years ago. I mentioned in this article something about how the Indian ideas about the health traveled throughout the world, and some of these ideas and medical knowledge also traveled to the Arctic and among Sami people. So peoples in India and Sami area have been parts of the same human web already hundreds of years ago, as trade goods linked people together. And here you can see a famous Hippocratean thought: let food be the medicine and medicine be the food. Throughout history, it has not always been easy to make the difference between which substances have been used as foods and which have been used as medicines. Pepper, for example, has been very much appreciated for a very long time. It was used both as food and as medicine, but in the Arctic, this was not the case with every imported plant that had medicinal properties. The Sami were often considered to be particularly healthy in written descriptions of the 18th and the 19th centuries. In 1791, a minister of Utsjoki wrote that the good health of the Utsjoki Sami was based on a cheerful outlook on life and fresh air. According to him, Utsjoki's location, where the mountains and hills alternated, caused a blast of wind that cleaned the air. These kinds of descriptions were quite usual during the 19th century. The first district doctor of the Sami area in Finland wrote still in 1903 that people of Lapland are generally healthy and rarely use any kind of medicine. They have the traditional remedies they have inherited from their forefathers for all kinds of diseases. Pestilence rarely menaces these lands, but when it does, it affects everyone, as in smallpox and typhoid fever, but even then, not many dies. There must be power of resistance in nature, and there are no pharmacists' medications meddling with and paralyzing those powers. In addition to clean air, cod liver oil was considered one of the reasons for the good health of the Sami people. Augusti Koivisto, who worked as a minister in Utsjoki during the late 19th century, wrote once about the diet of the Sami in a praising tone. He focused his attention especially on fish liver oil, which was commonly used for nutrition by the Sami. According to him, fresh fish liver oil that was eaten a lot near the shore of the Arctic Ocean was certainly healthy for everyone. But of course, Sami also had their share of the health problems. According to my sources, illnesses of the eye or ice were very common. The eyes of the Sami were affected by the smoky dwellings, and in the springtime, bright snow. Many illnesses were closely linked to the northern environment. The commonness of chest disease, for example, was in all likelihood due to the harsh Arctic climate. As there were no pharmacies in the Sami area at the time, inhabitants had to rely on themselves and what natural remedies they could think of. Sami people had traditionally used also their drums to cure illnesses, but it was not allowed anymore after they were integrated into the sphere of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Finland. But plants found in the nature could still be used freely. It must be remembered, however, that in the Arctic there are not so many plants and there is even less flora with medicinal properties. That was why the Sami in Utsjoki rarely used local plants as their remedies. Instead, they could stop the flow of blood from a wound, for example, by using a reindeer lung. Snow and ice were also important elements. According to information recorded in the 19th century, a frozen limb should be kept in cold water until it warmed and then be brushed with reindeer fat. But if we talk about Sami herbal medicine, we must mention this plant at the beginning. It's called Angelica, and it has been very much appreciated. Angelica had even been considered as an important remedy in fighting the plague or the Black Death. It was exported from the Sami homelands to Central Europe in the 16th and the 17th centuries in such volumes that it became extinct in some of its natural habitats in the western part of Norway. Faith in its miraculous potential is reflected in its Latin name Angelica Archangelica. It said that the archangel Gabriel himself manifested before a certain monk and revealed that the plant was a good medicine against the plague. As I mentioned earlier, Sami people had traditionally been considered to be very healthy. Many officials, scientists, and other non-indigenous observers were therefore very interested in their diet and healing methods. Botanist Carl von Linne, who made an expedition to Lapland in 1732, admired the traditional remedies of the Sami and recommended their methods, such as using birch bark for treating wounds and reindeer cheese for frost bites. On his expedition, Carl von Linne also recorded traditional ways of using the plants, and later he described the Angelica as follows. The Sami say the first year root, which doesn't yet sprout stalk, is a marvelous medical herb and that gives good health and long life. If they used any medication, it would most certainly be this. The stalks of the Angelica were a sometime delicacy of the Sami and a key vegetable in their diet, but the plant and especially its root were also used as medicine. It provided relief in the summertime when the Sami had stomach troubles after drinking sun-warmed, unhygienic forest water. Italian explorer Giuseppe Acerbi also praised the health-improving properties of the Angelica in his journal of the travels in Lapland in the late 18th century. He was fully convinced that he owed to this plant the uninterrupted good health which he enjoyed during all the time he was in the Sami area. But now I'm going to talk something about Indian influences. Here you can see Lars Levi Lestadius. He was a Lutheran church minister in a Sami parish in northernmost Sweden. He also was a founder of revival movement, and he also was a botanist. He also had Sami roots, and he knew the Sami culture very well. Lestadius wrote in his fragments of Lapis mythology about the belief that the Sami had in the miraculous power of snake stones. Snake stones were, according to him, stones that snakes had played with and had been taken from them. And at least some Sami people thought that these snake stones had power to heal various diseases. What is interesting here, Lestadius wrote that faith in the miraculous power of the snake stones had also been common among natives living along the Ganges. Lestadius wrote that the belief in snake stones could originate in India, like perhaps many other elements in Sami and Finnish magic too. As a Christian man, Lestadius was writing about magic when he was talking about old healing methods and things like that. Here's a contemporary of Lestadius, Jacob Fellman, who worked as a minister of Utsjoki in the 1820s. He wrote a lot about Sami, and he also made note of local and overseas elements among Sami healing methods. According to him, toothache could be cured by placing a clump of pine resin on the ailing tooth, and once could be treated using a plant called yarrow. These were the local products, as well as dried Anglican root, which Fellman also mentioned in his writings. He wrote that dried Anglican root, Issaphotide resin, camphor, pepper, gunpowder, and turpentine were the most effective remedies against illnesses among Sami people in Utsjoki. Here you can see the local products which Fellman mentioned. But as we could see, imported products were mentioned side by side with local remedies among the Utsjoki Sami. Among other things, Fellman mentioned camphor that had been used for centuries for various purposes in traditional Chinese medicine, for example. Camphor drops have also been known as a proper general medicine in Finland. There were bigger cities with pharmacies on the coast of northern Norway, so it was possible to buy camphor and other imported remedies when visiting those places. Here you can see Tromsø, which is located in the northern coast of Norway. The Sami who lived in Utsjoki traveled to the coast of Norway from time to time to trade or fish or herd their reindeer. All the Sami could not probably afford to buy imported products, which in the context of the 18th and 19th centuries might have been considered as luxuries. But it seems that imported drugs bought from a pharmacy were sometimes felt to be more powerful than local herbs. Constantly increasing international trade brought more and more products made of tropical plants to the northernmost areas of Europe and Fennoscandia. An important player in importing Asian products was the Swedish East India Company, as Finland was part of Sweden before the 19th century. This company was founded in Sweden in 1731. Swedish East India Company has a very interesting archive. From its accounts and inventories, it's possible to see what kind of cargo the individual ships carried. On the slide, you can see, for example, the word rapap, which was an important medicinal plant in Finland already in the 18th century. The Swedish ships mostly transported tea and China from China to Northern Europe, but they also brought camphor, ginger, garlic, and many other items that were rather used as medicines than as food in Finland and among Sami. Companies' trading items are listed in the webpage, and camphor is also mentioned. These words are in Swedish, but here you can see, for example, ingefära, which means ginger. Here is Anders Anderlin. He was also the minister of Utsjoki, And he wrote in the 1850s that the Sami rarely used any medicine bought from the cities, but when medication was required, the Sami might purchase pepper, ginger, asafoetida resin, sugar, and camphor, which were used to cure all pains. Pepper, for example, could be boiled in milk and then used to cure stomach pains. Sugar was mentioned as a medicine in Utsjoki by 1820s at the latest, as powder to be blown into a sore eye. And as you can see, Annelin listed some very interesting products here. I'm especially interested in ginger and the history of it. The history of ginger dates back at least 5,000 years. Its medicinal uses were first documented in India and China. I mentioned earlier that northern plant Angelica had been considered as an important remedy in fighting the plague. In the Middle Ages, ginger had also been used against the same disease. Ginger has traditionally been used in various ways in the medical traditions of China, India, and Japan. It helped with gout, cold, tooth pain, diarrhea, rheumatism, malaria, leprosy, and indigestion. I've also heard that in India, some tribal farmers still practice the traditional methods of its cultivation. Healing properties of ginger had been known also in Finland for a very long time. It was recommended as a medicine for many diseases, and it was used in the area of what is today known as Finland by the 16th century at the latest. Ginger was an important food item in the southern regions where it grows, but in the Arctic and among the Sami, it was only used as medicine. Both Fellman and Annelin mentioned asafoetida resin in their writings. I have read that in India, it has been used as a food and as a medicinal plant, but it also found its way to Northern Europe relatively early. Among some, it was seen only as a medicine. The Sami might treat a cough, for example, by holding a clump of asafoetida resin in the mouth, or by mixing asafoetida resin with snuff and inhaling the mixture through the nose. And here I have some conclusions. Lapland has been a popular destination for explorers, traders, and travelers. In addition to people, goods also traveled long distances to reach the north. Imported products were used side by side with local cures and remedies among the Sami. The medicinal culture of Lapland had a relatively strong cross-cultural dimension early on. The Sami had in their possession remedies that originated in India, China, and other distant lands, even to such an extent that this kind of medicine might have had a special symbolism to the Sami people. The traditional medicine skills and the knowledge of the Sami also featured elements from traditional Indian and Chinese medicine. There is always more to find out in my research. I'm interested in the tribal communities across the Indian subcontinent, and they, of course, had their own medicinal knowledge, making use of the local flora and fauna. And I don't know much about these things, but I would really like to find out more about these topics. So this is something that I should and I would like to study more in more detail in the near future, if there is any book recommendations with the historical perspective. So I would be happy to hear them. This is actually a picture that I took when I was visiting India and Amarkantak a couple of weeks ago. So this is my last slide. Here you can see a part of Teno River in Utsjoki. So now I just say thank you, and now
Thank
I
you.
guess there's a lot of
Thank
time
Thank
for
you very much.
discussion.
Yeah, very interesting and so close to India. The items that you showed, very close, and it is a part of our daily food, most of the things. So there are no questions in the chat box. So may I request Dr. Nitin Agarwalji to please give the presidential address.
Namaskar, and thank you everyone to be part of this very special subject. Thank you, Dr. Ritva Kylli, for presenting this healing aspect, especially with Sami people. I very well connect with your topic because I have been traveling very extensively to Scandinavian countries, primarily in Norway, north of Norway to Tromsø, Alta, Kirkenes, and all these places. And of course, had the privilege or opportunity to meet some of these Sami healers there.
Oh.
And yes, a lot is quite connected to Ayurveda. I am an Ayurveda doctor myself, and a practitioner. We have been noticing it that many of these things that the Sami healers practice, they have a lot of roots in the ancient traditional Ayurveda medicine as well. How it happened, how the knowledge transferred, a lot is not known, but you can see there has been a lot of similarities. Maybe the nature has taught us, maybe that is the truth of the nature. Because of that, we see that even people living in Finland or all these Sapmi areas, which is like Norway, Sweden, Finland, and this Russian territories, the northern of Kola Peninsula and further. So all these places, they have quite a lot of similar healing practices. Like, for example, if I elaborate on that, Sami healers, or what they call Sami TM or Sami traditional medicine healers, they have been using moxibustion. You know, this is a special therapy where they burn these Agni words, these wood, special wood, and it's like a acupressure thing if you talk about traditional Chinese medicine. But if you talk in correlation with Ayurveda, it is similar like Agni Karma, what we do in Ayurveda. And this Agni Karma is very effective, especially for healing of the joints, pain in the joints, skin diseases, and circulation of the blood. So I think here lies a similarity. Same, they were doing body therapies, which means they were doing some healing on the bodies. It could be both with the distance and it could be physical. And here we also do body therapy, what we call Panchkarma therapies in Ayurveda, where there's a lot of body work is done to heal and to treat the diseases. Psychiatric issues, psychological problems. Sami people and Sami healers were known to treat these problems in a very effective way. And through that, they were treating the body as a whole. So this whole holistic approach is also similar to what we talk also in Ayurveda, that we also believe in Ayurveda that humans have body, mind, and soul, like mind, body, and consciousness. These are like an integral part of the body. You can't take, heart as separate, kidneys as separate, digestion as separate, and then mind as separate. So everything is like holistic. And when you treat a person in a holistic way, then there is always a healing. There's a much better healing compared to conventional allopathic system of medicine, where they will treat only the symptoms or they cut down the disease and get it out of the system. So this is also a lot of similarities when we talk about Ayurveda or traditional Indian system of medicine together with these, Sami traditional medicine. Also, a mantra chikitsa, prayers or singing or through these words, Sami healers used to do a lot of prayers, a lot of singing, a lot of, as you mentioned, also like drum beating. Many of these things were done. This is also part of mantra chikitsa in Ayurveda, where you chant the mantras. Now these are basically sounds. Mantras are sounds which and they have a healing aspect on a person, because they enter into your body and the vibrational effect, and even it has the effect into the deeper tissues, as what we also believe in Ayurveda. And in India also, in traditional medicines, there were a lot of healers, who were even treating poison, snake poison, and people who were almost dead were brought out of their deathbed and alive and living healthy. A lot of other diseases also were healing. I worked for 8 years with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi Ji in Holland and in America. And there we were working for a project, what we called, traditional healers who were doing this mantra chikitsa, like healing through these mantras. And that has a very effective healing effect. People from very, very, rural areas of India, from the villages of India. In India, many Indians were not even trusting them that whether they can do a proper healing or not. But in the villages, people were trusting them. So all this knowledge, so that it does not get lost, we tried to bring them, all these people, to Europe and compile their mantras into the sound bites, so that this healing and this knowledge can be kept. So here again, I see the similarity. Also, it has been, when I was there in Norway and also in Sweden, we were told that the Sami healers, they have a very effective way of, a very fast way of healing people also. They can see hundreds of patients in a week, which generally a normal conventional doctor cannot even think about it to do that. And it has an effect. And when we talk to the patients, that how they felt about it, so they said that yes, they felt very healed, especially even with problems of the respiratory system, of the lungs, of the digestion, even all these problems, they were feeling that they were healed. Yes, of course, a lot of modern medicine practitioners can say, oh, it could be a placebo effect. But the placebo effect can work on few people, but not for a large, on a lot of large people. So there were, of course, some very significant things happening. And of course, as you rightly mentioned also, yes, some of the herbs at those times were also used by these Sami TM healers. Pepper, asafoetida, pine resin, turpentine oil. Some of these things were very effectively used to cure these different diseases, and very effectively, other than this, the medicines made from reindeer, from fish, even from whales, at that time they were using it. So some of these, lot of these things was happening. So what I would say in my concluding remarks is that I think it is high time now that we need to go back to our roots, to find out that all these healers who has been healing for centuries, even before the modern science, modern medicine came into light. Thousands and thousands and millions of people were being healed in India and in Europe and North Europe, especially in Scandinavian countries where we have a very harsh climate and harsh cold climate. In all these places, all this healing was happening. So all this knowledge, before it get lost completely, or maybe with a deliberate effect, yes, I would say church played a very negative role in this, where they, of course, destroyed this knowledge in a very big way, especially even converting all these people into Christianity. But that is fine, but even destroying the basic indigenous culture in that say. And that affected a lot of information and knowledge which got lost during this whole political exercise. I also see a lot of similarities Sometimes I travel to Finland or to Russia. Even Finnish sauna, Russian banya, they are very similar to Svedana in Ayurveda, what we do here. We do that very regularly. It's essential part of the treatment in Ayurveda, Abhyangam and Svedana. It is important. And that is why we see that but since we live in a tropical climate, we sweat. So in Ayurveda, there's a basic principle that the malas, which means the toxins, can be removed from the body through three means. One is urine, second is stool, and third is sweating. So in cold climate countries, sweating is not possible because the climate is very cold. But because they were having this knowledge, all these traditional healers, so they derived this culture of sauna in these countries, where it was made essential for families to have sauna often, as much as they can. And even so, that you may of course agree with me that even in Finland, that when we do some agreement, when we do start a new company or some traditional, some holy work in the families, they do it in a sauna sometimes. People even sign, agreements between companies in a sauna, even because that is considered as a religious exercise, as like a holy exercise, for reasons of health, so that people can be healthy, both physically as well as mentally. So all these traditional cultures, they have a very deep-rooted scientific origins, which of course need to bring forward more and more. And I of course congratulate the organizers to bring this very interesting, effective topic today, so that we can discuss more about it, what we call traditional Arctic healing. I, as an Ayurveda practitioner, and fortunately very extensively traveling to this part of the world, what we call Scandinavia in modern language. Yes, I have seen this with my own eyes and experienced it, and met some of these healers who take mind-body consciousness as one body, as one part for their holistic healing. So thank you, International Center for Cultural Studies of Bharat, for organizing this wonderful webinar. And of course, a special thanks to Professor Ritva Kylli for sharing your own research and sharing your own experiences with us, because for us, it of course makes a difference that someone in Finland is doing some work and some research on it. And I hope we can also find some more correlations together with the roots of these traditional systems in Ayurveda and traditional Indian system of medicines together. As you rightly mentioned about some of these herbs like asafoetida, ginger, pepper, these are all very, in India, we call them spices. They're like essential part of Indian kitchen. In almost every dish, we use these spices. Women folks cooking food every day. They may not be knowing the benefits of these spices, what we call medicinal plants, but they use it essentially as part of their daily kitchen and daily cooking. So I think it's been used that, yes, more and more people should know about it, and we can have more exchanges of knowledges like that. So thank you so much from my side also. If somebody has any questions, please feel free to ask. Namaste.